Namaste everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today's opponent ranking is 1135. Let's play. I move my pawn at e3, opponent's pawn at e5, my pawn at d3, opponent's pawn at d5, my pawn at c3, opponent's knight at f6, my knight at f3, opponent's bishop at g4, my bishop at e2, opponent bishop captures my knight at f3, my bishop captures opponent's bishop at f3, opponent bishops at d3, my queen at a4 with check, opponent's knight at c6, my queen at b3, opponent's pawn at b6, I captures opponent's pawn at d5, opponent captures my bishop at d5, my queen captures opponent knight at d5, opponent moves its queen at d7, I move my pawn at d4, opponent's pawn captures my pawn at d4, my pawn captures opponent pawn at d4, opponent's castle, me also castle, opponent's knight at b4, I move my queen at b3, opponent moves its queen at f5, I move my knight at a3, opponent moves its queen at s5, I move my pawn at d3, opponent moves its knight at d5, I move my knight at c4, opponent moves its knight at f6, I move my queen at d1, opponent moves its queen at s3, I move my pawn at f3, opponent moves its pawn at c5, I captures opponent's rook at d6, opponent captures my pawn at d4, my pawn captures opponent's pawn at d4, opponent moves its rook at d8, I move my knight at e4, opponent moves its knight at d5, I move my knight at z5, opponent moves its queen at s5, I move my pawn at b3, opponent moves its pawn at f6, and I got the chance. I move my knight at e6, opponent moves its rook at e8, I captures opponent's rook at d8, opponent captures my knight at d8, I move my rook at b2, opponent's queen moves at h3, I move my queen at d2, opponent moves its rook at e8, I move my rook at e1, opponent captures my rook at e1, my queen captures opponent's rook at e1, opponent moves its rook at h6, I move my queen at e8 with check, opponent moves its king at h7, I move my queen at e4 cap with check, I captures opponent's knight at f5, I captures opponent knight at d5, opponent moves its pawn at f4, again I move my queen at e4 with check, opponent moves its king at s8, I captures opponent pawn at f4, and opponents surrender. Thank you so much guys, goodbye until next time.